What's up guys, welcome to Rare Liquid, and today I have a pretty special announcement, which is that I'm going to be pursuing my MBA next year in 2022. Jumping straight into the agenda, I'll first be explaining why I'm pursuing an MBA, I'll then reveal where I applied and where I'm going, and lastly I'll explain how I plan to prioritize my time. Before I begin though, quick shout out to our sponsor of today's video, Target Test Prep, for helping make this video possible. Alright, so jumping straight into it, let me provide some context as to why I'm pursuing an MBA. As some of you may know from watching my previous videos, after I quit banking, I traveled around for a little bit and then started a clothing company called Aesthetic Studios, which I operated from October 2018 to December 2020. And I closed that business down about a year ago because the business just was not going well, and honestly, it was just kind of like a dumpster fire. Now don't get me wrong, I learned a ton from operating that business and I have zero regrets, and if you want to learn more about that, you can watch this video right here. But basically, late last year when I was thinking about what I should do next with my career, I applied to a few places, didn't really hear back, and so that kind of inspired me to want a kind of a blank slate, which is what business school provides. So then in the last few months of 2020, as I was winding down Aesthetic Studios, I started studying for and took the GMAT, which is the test you need to take in order to apply to business school, or you can also take the GRE instead. And then I put together my applications for the 2020 to 2021 cycle, and then ended up submitting my last application in the round 2 of the whole application cycle process, and submitted everything on January around 6th, I think, of 2021. After I submitted my applications, I had so much free time, and that's actually when I decided to start Rare Liquid, and the first video I published was on January 19th, 2021. Eventually, I heard back from schools around April 2021 this year and was pretty excited to start going to school in September of this year, but then I got some pretty bad news where my mom got hospitalized earlier in March, and then so I wanted to spend some more time with her because she's pretty sick, as some of you may know from my previous videos, and then so I requested a deferral to start the next year, so I'll actually be starting in 2022. So now focusing on why I'm actually pursuing the MBA, to be completely honest, my reasons for actually applying changed a lot for when I submitted my applications earlier this year versus now. And a lot of that has to do with Rare Liquid, because I started the channel not really knowing where it was going to go. And then, 8 or 9 months later, now that the channel has been going pretty well, I feel like this is kind of what I want to do for the next 5 to 10 years. And so when I first was applying to school, I wanted to go and try to recruit for an industry like at a hedge fund or a tech job or something like that. But now I'm not really interested in any of that, right? And going to school and getting your next job is usually one of the big draws, but for me, it's actually more to just be surrounded by a really interesting and smart set of people, and to just build out that network over the next few years or so, and then to also have like that lifelong community that I can kind of always go back to. It's also really just been a dream of mine really to go to business school, because I hear about it so much, and one conversation I had with a friend in particular actually really stands out. He kind of mentioned to me that no one who goes to business school ever really regrets it. There may be a few, but for the vast majority of people, even though you invest a lot of time and money into going to school, I think it says a lot that in retrospect, no one comes out really saying like, oh, I wish I didn't go to school. I'm going to be paying for everything out of my own pocket, so from the money I make from Rare Liquid, so it's not like I have this huge scholarship or my parents are paying for me or anything. I'm really just investing into this whole experience myself, and I think it's really just going to be worth it. Now, I know a lot of you in the comments might say, hey, didn't Elon Musk say that MBAs are worthless, or I can't believe you're going to spend all that money going to MBA school, blah, 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 blah. But honestly, I think I've done a lot of research into what school is. I think your MBA experience is really what you make out of it. And even if I have to buy a house, a few years later down the line than if I didn't go to school, I don't really care, honestly, if I have to get a house later or can't afford nice things until later on in life, because I think for me, life is a lot more about experiences, and the MBA is something that, like I said, I've wanted to pursue since many years ago, or at least was curious about. And now that I have this opportunity to actually pursue it, I feel like why not take this chance? Anyhow, to get into business school, one of the toughest parts is taking either the GMAT or the GRE. And like I said, I took the GMAT, which was honestly one of the toughest parts of the whole application process. I hadn't been a student for many years until I took the test. And so that's why I'm pretty excited to actually share with you today's sponsor, Target Test Prep, because they're a resource that I personally used myself. And I researched a lot before actually buying into them or buying into that service. And they're all over Reddit as one of the best platforms to use in order to study for the GMAT. Now, if you follow this channel, you know I only recommend products I can stand by or have used myself, and I credit TTP a lot for helping me get a 750 on the GMAT, and I even emailed the founder back in 2020 before I even started Rare Liquid, thanking him for the resource he built because it was just so helpful. The great thing about TTP is that it covers both quant and verbal sections and breaks down everything into key individual topics with really thorough lessons and practice sets you can use to master each topic. According to verified reviews on GMAT Club, the average reported GMAT score from TTP is 727, and TTP is the only company with triple-digit reviews and a 5-star rating. And so if you're interested in applying for an MBA, feel free to check out my link down in the description below. I highly recommend TTP and really credit them a lot for helping me get my score of 750. Alright, now next up, let me reveal where I applied to and where I'm going. I applied to 4 schools, which were Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, and Columbia, and the one I'll be going to is, drumroll please, Wharton. Alright, so quick confession, I never got into Harvard or Stanford, so those were never really options anyway, but I did get into Columbia. I was kind of considering them because I do really want to live in New York City at some point in my life, but Penn was actually always kind of my dream school when I was applying for college, and I didn't get in when I was applying as an undergrad. So now to be able to go for an MBA is kind of like fulfilling a dream that I had way back when and kind of doing it now when I'm in my late 20s. I actually will be pursuing a joint degree with an MBA plus a master's in international studies through the Lauder Institute. The Lauder program has around 70 to 80 students from all over the world who each are required to speak a foreign language and have an interest in international business. I applied for Lauder because as I was doing business over the past few years for aesthetic studios, I worked with suppliers in China and Korea, have also been living in Korea for the past few years, and then also was doing business in the United States. And so I kind of got this international exposure that got me more interested in doing business kind of throughout the world. And the second reason is that Lauder, as I mentioned earlier, is a pretty small cohort of 70 to 80 people, while the entire Wharton class size is around 800. So as I spoke with some friends who had been in the program or have just kind of heard about it from their own time there at Wharton, they mentioned it was kind of this nice little home within a larger home, and that's something that, you know, I've always thrived more in smaller settings, and so that's personally why I was interested in this program. So anyway, because of this dual degree, I'll be starting in May 2022 of next year instead of the normal timeline, which is around August of next year. And so yeah, I'll be moving to Philadelphia, I guess like half a year, yeah, like 6 months from now. Honestly, I don't think it's really even hit me yet that I'm leaving Korea and will be living in the East Coast for the first time in my life. But yeah, we'll see, and I'll definitely keep you all updated with the journey. Alright, now lastly, let me just quickly share with you how I plan to prioritize my time during my MBA experience. So from my own research of just looking online and then speaking with friends who have already gone through the MBA program, there's kind of 4 main things you can spend your time on. The first of which is social life, getting to know people, going on trips, things like that. The second are clubs and activities, which are a little bit more optional. The third are academics, and fourth is recruiting. Depending on who you are, you prioritize these things a little bit differently, but you can't go all in on all 4 of these categories because you just have limited time, right? And so if you're, let's say, a doctor who just got into MBA school, is trying to transition into, let's say, investment banking, which one of my coworkers actually back at JP Morgan did, then you might want to focus a little bit more on academics because you'll actually be learning a lot in those classes, right? But for me personally, and for a lot of people who have worked in business already and also got an undergrad degree in business, academics tends not to be the most important thing, especially because there's no grade disclosure, which just means that pretty much you don't have to really get a super high GPA or anything like that. It doesn't really affect recruiting or anything. And for me personally, I'm not going to be recruiting as well because I have Rare Liquid. It's my business that I want to keep growing. And so recruiting and academics, which are 2 of the huge parts of business school if you choose to focus on them, is not going to be what I am going to focus on. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some classes I've looked up that I'm pretty excited to take, and Wharton being a finance school, I think there may be some really good exposure to professors and just people within my own class who are just really good at investing, so hopefully I'll learn a lot from them as well. I also plan to be involved in a little bit in clubs, probably just more as a member instead of as like a leader, but you know, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, most of my time is just going to be focused on developing relationships there, getting to know my class, and honestly, the past few years working on aesthetic studios as an entrepreneur, as some of you may know, as a caregiver for my family, has been really, really taxing. And so business school will also just be, it'll be nice to be in a new environment as a student, someone who can just soak in learning from the whole experience. And so, yeah, I'm pretty excited for the next few years of going to school. Of course, I'll be sharing with you guys my experience, and I'm pretty excited to make some videos about my MBA experience over the next few years. And if you also want to get some more live real-time updates, then you can check out my personal Instagram, which is @BenJChan. And I'll be posting my moving in experience and then my day in the life stuff, I guess. Who knows? Let me know down in the comments below, actually, if there are certain topics that you're curious about, or if there's anything else you'd like to know. If you want to follow my investing journey, you can also check out my Patreon down in the description below. I also have a free daily newsletter which you can check out. And lastly, make sure to check out TTP if you're interested in studying for the GMAT to apply to MBA yourself. And with that said, thank you so much as always for watching. Hope to catch you guys in the next video. Thanks and peace out.